Iola Johnson, who was your first anchoring partner in Dallas, and left the station, I think a lot of people feel, prematurely over a contract situation, and either way, you ended up working with her again briefly at Channel 11.
Iola is also a friend. She is from the African American experience, and I can't speak to that, but I know it drove a lot of her decisions. She used to fret about being an older African American woman. She didn't see any of them in this business at that time, and so she decided she would go into business for herself and use what she had been able to generate in terms of income to open up a boutique, which didn't work out for her. She did leave the business prematurely, but Iola has a wonderful, wonderful heart, and I just love her immensely, and I still get to see her from time to time.
Troy Dungan, who I guess probably was your closest friend at Channel 8.
Yeah, and still is a dear, dear friend. We saw him over the Christmas holidays, and Troy is, he's just a broadcaster's broadcaster. He's a great guy, and he has a wonderful ability to step into a room and be friends with everybody in that room. And I just love him to pieces. We'll always be good friends, and even though it was difficult when I left Channel 8 because we had such a close relationship both professionally and personally, Channel 8 stepped in and gave him the sweetest contract to make sure that we weren't able to attract him to Channel 11. So on more than one occasion, he's thanked me for that, and they continue to hold on to it. So my move to Channel 11 helped Troy as well.
Dale Hansen stayed behind too. I'm sure you had some interesting experiences with Dale.
Well, I did, and the thing of it is that I understand. People say, gee, Dale Hansen, what a jerk. Dale Hansen is really a great guy. I mean, he's not afraid to say what he wants to say on television. He's grown, and he's also another one of those larger-than-life people who's just simply grown in front of us. I remember when he was over at Channel 4, and that was a great story because he had been fired by a guy in like Des Moines or someplace, or Omaha, I guess it was. And so he wound up going to Channel 4, and he wrote to the guy, and he says, and the guy since had been fired from Omaha, and Hansen wrote to him and he said, I'm in Dallas, where are you? Well, the guy was hired as his news director. That's what actually happened. And so he came in and fired Hansen, and Marty Haig knew that his talent was and hired him. But I think I like Dale very much. He's a great guy. He's got a good heart. He does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people know absolutely nothing about. He's helped a lot of people, and I think he's a great, great talent.
Let me just say something briefly about Dale, because it's been interesting since leaving the Dallas Morning News, but Dale has a huge ego, as everyone probably knows, and enjoys being on camera, enjoys being the center of attention, but no one is more of a stand-up guy in the business than Dale Hansen. He will always talk to me. He has through thick and thin, and doesn't really care what management thinks. And I really appreciate him for that, because I've been very critical of him over the years, and I think he appreciates getting some of that too. So a lot of people, he's kind of a polarizing personality. He might be the Howard Cosell of this market, but as you can see from his unplugged segments and the way he just, he'll criticize anybody. He'll say what he thinks. And really, management or anybody else has nothing to do with his opinions. They're clearly his own, and I really respect him for that. Last person, before we go to questions, Karen Borda over at Channel 11, who you have anchored with since you got there back in 2000. You were actually on the beach for
For some months.
8 months or so before you finally resurfaced there.
Yeah, they because of the contract conflict. But they, Karen Borda, in fact, Ed Bart once wrote when Cameron Harper was over there, and Ed did an analysis of the anchors, and at that time he said that Karen Borda is a work in progress, and Cameron Harper is just a piece of work. And that's really very true. But Karen Borda, I think, will emerge and is emerging as a star in this market. She has a wonderful personality. She's just a fundamentally very good person, and she's not ego-driven. She's none of that stuff, and she wants very much to be the best anchor that she can be. And I think that she's just growing by leaps and bounds, and I think she drives the Channel 11 newscast today. And one of the things that I told her early on was that when I finally left, I really wanted to be able to say that you know, we had become friends and that she had grown through that period of time that we worked together. And I think she would say that she has. And I'm very proud of Karen. She's just a remarkably good person.
Okay, Tracy, greatly appreciate your candor and your willingness to be here. And please, any questions you may have out there for Tracy Rowlett.
Okay, I'll get the mic. I'll go first. That's thing. I'll go first. As an old reporter, I always feel bad when I watch the news at 10. And about 10:15, there's some poor guy out there in the dark, in the cold, in the rain, having to introduce a piece of tape that he made 6 or 8 or 10 hours ago. So it seemed all live and dynamic right now. Is there any research that shows it actually has an effect on ratings or viewers? Why do you do that?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. Why do we go live all the time? Live for the sake of going live. And there's the one thing that perhaps radio and television will have over print is this whole notion of immediacy. So that's why it's done. It's trying to make people get a sense of the right now and to put some energy into what was truly an old piece of news. It happens every day, and sometimes it's kind of ridiculous. You know, you'll have a place where maybe somebody walked in and shot somebody in an office. Well, that office is long hours ago closed, and still you're going to have a reporter out there saying, you know, in this dark office space behind me, this happened, you know, earlier today. It's live for the sake of going live. All of the television stations are doing it, and yes, the consultants tell us that that is another reason for people to watch, and it gives you a sense of presence and immediacy.
Got the mic back. Who's next?
Tracy, Dave Tarrant. We were talking about, obviously, the effect of the internet on newspapers. What's it having, or what do you think will be the long-term effect on TV?
That's really a good question. You know, I hear all this talk about convergence, and I'm not quite sure what that means. I can define the word as I think everybody in the room can. What it means in terms of media, I'm not really sure. I would say this much, that I think that we're watching phenomenal growth in our various websites, and all the television stations have websites and are actually competing now on those websites, and each television station has dedicated even a sales team and a producer and other people are responsible for only that website. They're not quite sure where it's going to go, but the growth in terms of dollars is pretty phenomenal. It's like $100 million. You just recently did like $100 million in revenue on just the local websites. It's nothing compared to what is still the real breadwinner, and that's the local TV newscast. But internet influence is driving a lot of the stuff that we see. You can go on the internet and get stories right now. You can put together your own newscast. You can hear people like, or read people like Ed and others as they do their blogs and give you input on things. It's kind of an exciting place to be. What's going to happen in the future, no one really knows, but I think that is where everybody is paying the closest attention right now. And it's pretty exciting. It's said that a lot of folks don't watch news anymore because they're getting all their information off the